One way to fight inflation is to drive down wages and make Americans poorer. I think I have a better idea to fight inflation. Lower your costs, not your wages.
So what he said there was lower your costs, not your wages.
Gosh.
Oh, man.
Why didn't we think to
only-
do that?
That's such a
Wow. Why didn't anyone think
Thank
to do
goodness
that?
Biden was here to tell us that. Lower your costs, not your wages. As if corporations that have been corrupt or just all of a sudden got way more corrupt in the last year than they have been for the past 20 years or whatever. But just ridiculous. And this, it just speaks to this kind of idea that Democrats have about economics, which is that like businesses should essentially just donate money to make sure that their workers are taken care of. I mean, you don't deserve, like, when you sign a contract with somebody, when you decide to go work for somebody, that's a consensual exchange. You're agreeing to give them your services, and they're agreeing to give you a certain amount of money. Mm-hmm. You're not being exploited if you could back out at any time. Yep. So the idea that, oh, yeah, well, they need to get paid more because it's not fair. No, it is 100% fair. And you don't deserve to get paid more just because it would make your life easier.
Well, it's also internally contradicted. You're right. It's like they're thinking suddenly businesses became much more Machiavellian over the last year. But at the same time, it's like, oh no, businesses were being super. Well, I don't even know what the word is, but the idea that they weren't being well, no, but it's the opposite of that too, because it's like they weren't being unbelievably greedy before. Because if you say, why don't they just lower the costs? It's like they already would have done that if they could. That's the whole point to profit, is they would totally lower the cost so they could put more money in their pockets if they could. So this assumes that not only have they been far more greedy lately, it also assumes they've not been far more greedy lately. It's internally contradictory.
Yes. And of course, one of the biggest costs for a lot of, smaller to middling businesses is their employees, is the payroll. And if you tell them, well, you can't lower wages, but you have to lower costs, what are they going to do? They're going to hire less people. They're going to hire more people part-time. I worked at UPS for a while. And the union at UPS, they fought so hard for wage increases. They're like, oh, this is gonna
very strong union.
This is gonna help, everybody's lives, all of the delivery drivers. You know what happened? They started hiring weekend delivery guys. They didn't have to pay as much. They started cutting people's hours. It's like, well, you're getting all this pay, but you're actually making less money. And that happens at every level, whenever there's minimum wage increase and all of that stuff. That wasn't even the thing Biden said that made me the most angry. Now, there's another clip that we're going to play for you now. This is what really ticked me off, and I'll explain why after it's played.
We pay for my jobs and family plan. I made it clear we can do it without increasing the deficit. Let's start with what I will not do. I will not impose any tax increase on people making less than $400,000. But it's time for corporate America and the wealthiest 1% of Americans to just begin to pay their fair share. Just their fair share. Sometimes I have arguments with my friends in the Democratic Party. I think you should be able to become a billionaire and a millionaire, but pay your fair share.
Well, I just noticed a pretty funny thing. So Biden said that exact same thing at this State of the Union.
If it sounded familiar,
that was actually what he said last year. I accidentally
you couldn't hear it, but there were just moans of disappointment from the booth.
So yeah, I that's actually all my fault since I sent that clip to our producer.
Or perhaps those might have been moans of disappointment from the viewers that we heard come back through the cameras, possibly.
No, I was yelling at the screen last night. Biden did talk about, making the rich pay their fair share. He talked about all of that this year.
Yeah.
And it's based on a lie. Like, the rich do pay their fair share. Now, we ran a story a couple weeks ago about how Elizabeth Warren was crying about how Elon Musk paid $0 in taxes in 2018. That's not true. He paid he paid zero income taxes because he didn't have any, straight up income to pay taxes on in 2018. A lot of, guys at that level of the economy, a lot of their income that they make comes from like trading stocks and stock options and stuff like that. And you don't pay taxes on that until you liquidate it.
Yeah, he just used the system that Congress put in place, that Democrats put in place.
Well, and when he did liquidate it in 2021, Elon Musk had the largest tax bill in U.S. history. He paid $11 billion in taxes. So he's paying his fair share. And they talk a lot about this, about, oh, the rich, they're paying so little in income tax. But there's all kinds of taxes that, people like that pay. They pay sales taxes, property taxes, payroll taxes, corporate taxes. The list goes on, estate taxes. And Elon Musk, probably on one of his major purchases, pays more in sales taxes than Elizabeth Warren or Joe Biden has paid in taxes their entire lives. So the idea that they're not paying their fair share is ridiculous. But also, the other complicating factor of this is that they're saying, okay, they're going to pay their fair share, and then we're going to be able to fund all this, crap that the government's doing that'll help your lives get all this much better. In reality, there's no, increasing taxes on the rich does not create more money for the government. That doesn't mean that the rich is all of a sudden gonna, we're gonna have 20 billion more in tax revenue for the government to spend. In reality, when you raise taxes on the rich, they take their investments elsewhere. They start, putting their money in shelters overseas, and then other countries start benefiting. You got other countries, because of American money moving over there, they get higher output, rising incomes, more tax revenue for those countries, and more jobs created in those countries. So his solution to fight inflation, to fight, jobs being lost, is to basically send all of our money overseas. That's the end result of these, higher tax rates. And it's utterly ridiculous.
Well, that goes hand in hand with another policy that the left is backing right now, that Davos is for, and that is eliminating overseas tax havens. So there would be a universal tax across every country for businesses. So the idea is you essentially hold the businesses hostage. If they're going to pay a 10% tax no matter where they incorporate, then they're going to hang in their home country, presumably. That's the idea. But again, then that gets back to the costs issue. We go back to just lower costs. Well, if you're increasing taxes, that means you're raising costs. It is so strange. It's like all of these things are disconnected in the mind of the left. None of these things relates to another.
And they assume that every business just has all this extra money hanging around that they're just keeping for themselves while they exploit all their workers. There are businesses that do that, and there are businesses that have been made more powerful by regulations and COVID lockdowns. Everything Biden and the federal government is doing to, regulate big business and to, increase taxes on corporations, that ends up hurting small businesses the most. Corporations welcome that because it eliminates all of their competition, and then guess what? They get to pay you way less per hour. So,
it's so hard. It's so hard to understand this because it's easy to look at somebody like Musk or the Walton family or Bill Gates and think, good gracious, look at all the money they've got. Man, if they would just lower prices at Walmart or for Windows or whatever, then look how much better off the country would be. But the only reason they have that much money is because of scale. It's not like, they are making pennies, fractions of pennies per sale, per transaction. So it's not like giving up. You said how much was Musk's tax bill? 11 billion. So 11 billion, and what's the budget right now? Probably 1.6, 1.7 trillion, something like that. So that's less than 1,000th of the annual budget for the United States, and that's the richest guy ever.
Yes.
It doesn't work the way they think it works. But it's really easy to point to rich people and say they're not paying their fair share.
And, I kind of a big theme for all the things we're talking about with what Biden was saying at the State of the Union is unintended consequences, and how your actions, you can say you're doing one thing and you can actually believe that it's accomplishing some sort of goal, but the end results, the actions, that's what matters. And the end result of raising taxes like this, costs are going to get pushed on to consumers. The average American is going to be paying more for stuff. There's going to be less jobs, less job creation, less tax revenue for the government in many cases.
Sure.